Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Blacklist. A great episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, this starts off with basically, this episode kind of revolves around scientists in the AI area of things, and this one dude ends up getting killed by cops at the beginning because there was a video saying like, oh, he was threatening to take, like he had a bomb vest on and all that stuff, but it turns out when the cops got there and they killed him, it turns out he didn't actually have one on. It turns out that video was faked, and so it's a whole situation of finding out who faked this video. And to the fact is, they took these little things, they modified the video to make it look like they cut together a lot of stuff, but also modified the video in a sense to make it look like it's realistically him talking and stuff like that. Obviously, we've seen like so far how like that, you know, that type of technology can be applied and completely used. So it's just interesting seeing it used in this, way. And it turns out this isn't the first crime of this nature, that there's actually been other crimes of people who've been proven to be like, oh, these people did something bad, but it turns out it was faked. So it's a whole thing of like, okay, we got to figure out who's behind all this. At the same time, we get introduced to a new agent, Agent Park. She comes in, she's all super enthusiastic and whatnot. It's like, hey, she's like, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm so sorry I'm late. It's like, oh, wrestler, I've heard so much great stuff about you. The fact of the matter is, you going after Reddington, you were relentless. And wrestler's like, yeah, and ironic. His pursuit of Reddington being relentless yet ironic in the grand scheme of things of where they are right now. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I love immediately Aram is kind of like a little put off by Agent Park, because she immediately shows up being like, oh yeah, here's some stuff. It's like, oh, she's kind of doing his job, because at first it's like, initially wrestlers like, oh, you're mad because Samar's being replaced, and that's all you have to think about. Samar's been with the team since like a good chunk of season 1, because the lady that was there, like, it's so long ago, I actually don't remember, but there was an agent before Samar, but she's just been part of the show for so long you kind of might have forgot, but she had died, and then sometime later Samar joined the team as kind of a bit of a replacement. So it's kind of crazy to think like, oh yeah, after all this time Samar's getting replaced, which I love that Aram was like, I'm not worried about me being I'm worried about Samar being replaced. It's about me being replaced. And the fact of the matter is, for him, he's like, I'm with Miss Rat, he's with Edley, Radcliffe, and it's kind of like, oh, we're having fun and we're happy, we have some bumps in the road. It's like and Russell's like, oh, you mean her husband and his wheelchair? And Aram's like, he's like, but beside, the fact is, he's like, since y'all got, Agent Park, who is so perfect, I'm gonna go, spend time with her, which we'll kind of get to that stuff later on. But I love this case, involving, them tracking down. I love they go to that teenager's house, and his mom was like, if you need to check his computer, oh, you don't have a warrant for his phone, you could take his phone and check it. He's like, Mom, and she's like, I know what this is about. This is about all that porno. I'm like, that poor kid is getting super mortified. But then it's like, okay, so the kid ends up not being behind it. It's basically a malware or something that's put on it to make it seem like it's coming from his computer. It was like a virus or something that made it seem like it. But lo and behold, all this kind of checks to like eventually to a hitman for hire, and then Reddington and Brimley and Dembe end up tracking it down, which I love that they're having that dessert at Brimley's place, and Dembe's like, where's the ice cream? He's like, ice cream? It's like, no, ice cream with this heavy cream. Dembe's like, I just love that moment of, wait, where's the ice cream? It was kind of a cute moment, but then they track down the guy, and it's like, oh, here's Brimley, and he's like, oh, Dembe, will you help me do these stretches? He's like, I'm gonna have to be extra limber for this one. And then lo and behold, Liz and Park, which I love her conversations with different people. First of all, her conversations with Lester, because she's like, how can you work with the Reddington after everything, like work for him? And it's like, well, that's a complicated thing. It's like, you've seen the record of what we do, but still at the same time, it's like, that everything he probably sends your way is just to make his criminal empire stronger, which is like, Reddington's like, wrestler's like, yeah, I pretty much figured as much. That's always kind of crossed her mind. But at the same time, for him, he does recognize that everything is connected to Liz, that in despite everything, especially because because obviously she doesn't know know everything because they're, it's like, oh, she's working with Reddington. She doesn't know about Reddington's real identity. But for him, it's like, oh, I'm Reddington. I'm better Reddington than even real Reddington was, So there's that whole thing again. But so I guess they haven't got to that point where they're going to tell her the truth because her being, who she is, kind of very straight-laced. Because even wrestlers, like, honestly, you remind me of someone I used to know, me, because he was very, like, choir boy, follow the rules type, He was just kind of like Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, but obviously he's done some very compromising things over the course of this series, so I don't think he necessarily looks at himself like that anymore. That's why he was like, oh, like I used to. But then there's the whole situation of Liz telling, Park, like, well, technically you had the job. She's like, what do you mean technically? Wait, do I have to, like, get his approval? Does he get to have final say? Because the entire time, Reddington's like, I don't want Park, I want Francesca to be on the team. Which side note I should point out, I kept wondering why I recognized the actress who played Francesca. She was in season 2 of The Sinner, so I was like, oh yeah, that's what it was. Which is interesting because obviously like the connection between USA and NBC, so it's just funny to kind of think about in the grand scheme of things. But it was like that's what I recognized her from. But nevertheless, I love that whole situation of Liz telling her to kind of put her best foot forward. She's like, really? I got to be on my best for him. She's being like, doesn't this seem a little twisted? They walk up there. It turns out the hitman Higgins is dead. And it's like, oh. And then you have Liz being like, and I love, it's such a casual thing of Liz being like, what the hell happened? He's dead? And then it turns out like basically Brimley blames himself because he's like, oh, his blood sugar was too high from the dessert they had. He was off his game. It's like, oh, the fact is the dude had like an ulcer thing that was happening, and I just love that we're having this casual conversation, and then here comes the cleanup crew and everything, and Reddington's like, I don't give me excuses, the fact is you were running late, and the fact of the matter is, and Park is like, I want to have nothing to do with this, and she's kind of just like walking away, because she's just like, and then Liz being like, the fact of the matter is, you wanted her to see this on purpose, didn't you? And Reddington's like, what? Why would you even think? But you talked about the fact that you saw some darkness in her. The fact of the matter is, all that situation shown is that there's not enough. I just love that was the outcome of that whole situation. I thought that was just so beautifully executed. I love that. But in the grand scheme of things, this all, leads back to, Lewis Powell, who is kind of in the same field of AI stuff. Well, when Aram and Park show up, it's like, oh, he's dead. So turns out that this whole thing is about one particular AI. Basically, it's trying to prevent a singularity thing of like, hey, it's this AI that realizes it's so smart, but to kind of prevent, to make sure that humans stay alive, it's doing all of this to make sure it's killing all these top level AI people in this particular field of science so that they can push the AI, technology back like 10 decades or at the very least 10 years or whatever. So it's about basically destroying itself in any opportunity because it's like, oh, it's ironic. Lewis because it's like the AI's name is Clark. It's like, oh, Lewis and Clark. Yeah, Lewis liked jokes, which was kind of interesting just because it almost seemed like in a twisted sense because the AI recognized it just interesting to me because it means that it recognizes humor. So this AI kind of has a little bit of a sense of humor to a certain extent. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. I felt like jokes and humor typically go over AI's head, just based on the fiction I'm kind of, I've associated with over the years, but regardless. So there's a whole situation of like, okay, so it's doing all this stuff to kill these people. And they're like, oh, what about the FBI agents there? It's like, no, they are a, necessary casualty of this whole situation. So it's that thing of kind of seeing things from a very practical and logical standpoint of like, I'm trying to protect humans as a whole, but that means taking down this whole situation. So they start, Park and Aram start unplugging everything. I even love that dude ends up hugging Wrestler later because he's like, hey, you didn't have to come back for me, but you did. And Wrestler's kind of like, almost kind of got that look like, yeah, sure thing, bro. But I love that circumstance. So it's just kind of like, and even Aram and the whole Park situation of him being a little optimistic about this whole thing because he's like, because Park is like, no, did you not, that situation there, it's like we could be dealing with like, aren't you worried about scary AIs because you want to kind of try and recover any data? And he's like, well, and he brings up a good point of like, well, not, not all, AI, that was a psychopathic AI. It's kind of like humans. Some people are bad, but that doesn't mean all people are bad. So the same thing applies for AI. She's like, haven't you seen Terminator? He's like, honestly, I've never seen Terminator. She's like, what? He's like, I don't like, dark future stuff like that, so he hasn't seen it. So I just thought it was kind of a neat little nerd moment. But kind of tying in other stuff in the episode, there's the whole Francesca thing, her being brought in by this guy to be like, hey, come with me, and he takes her to a place, and it's like, oh, a video of Katarina plays, and the moment the video played, I was like, this whole thing is it's a trap, isn't it? It's a test, because it has to be, because obviously who popped up early in the episode? Tadashi. He was geeking out so much over this, what was it? The deep fake video of the first victim in this episode, but obviously this one was like glitchy and messed up. It's like, because he's not as well versed in this, because that was like an AI, or maybe it was Lewis at that point in time making it, but it was a situation of like, Tadashi isn't as well skilled, so the video, it was good to fool someone that wasn't technologically savvy, but the fact of the matter is, it was still kind of like not as on par with like the other kind of deep fake stuff that had going down. I even love that Reddington likes the deep fake name. He's like, oh, you kids in your names, you're deep fakes. He's like, why do you think I am always keen on using a flip phone and always using dead drops? Because of just situations like this. But regardless, basically, quote unquote, Katarina is sending Francesca to betray Reddington by grabbing someone that is trying to betray Reddington, but she wants Francesca to go because that way she can make sure it's not a setup. And lo and behold, she go, and it's so sad because Reddington's like, oh, the fact is I'm trusting you. It's like, oh, here's a cigar and everything, and it's like, oh, that's kind of a sweet moment. And then she goes and is Vontae, and I'm like, the moment that it was like, oh, it's Vontae, I'm like, oh man, this is definitely a trap. No, it's because there's no way Vontae's going to betray Reddington. Like, Reddington literally, that's your most recent pal. It's like, he got you out of prison and everything. Like, they're tight. Like, the fact is, Vontae and Reddington are super cool. It's like, there's no way Vontae's doing it. So this is all a trap. And I was so curious to see if at the end of it all, whether Francesca would come through or not, to be like, okay, I'm going to be like, no, it's all okay. Like that she was going to, at the last minute, go, Reddington, this is a trap or something like that, and he'd be impressed. I thought that's the route it would go. Nope. Turned out not to be the case at all. I was like, holy shit. She stayed kind of like traitor, because obviously Reddington doesn't like traitors. And obviously the sad thing is, she kind of felt conflicted because a lot of the stuff she brought up about Reddington kind of surprising her, I think it was true. So for her, she felt a little conflicted, but in the end, she still didn't change things around. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of sad. And Reddington's like, oh, why'd you betray me? And she's like, I wanted to be a different character in a different story, Because I was so interested in that, because I thought like, oh, Francesca, they're setting her up to be like a main character this season. So I was like, nope. That was kind of an interesting twist, which obviously I brought up before. It's interesting. I mean, because the fact of the matter is, in that regard of someone that close, Reddington hasn't had anyone because I think he learned from that mistake. He hasn't had anyone that close to him since Kate. Kate, because Dembe's like the only, the people that are closest to him, Dembe's the last one standing, because like Kate was the one even way before that, but obviously like he's never letting anyone get that close again, because he's like, oh, I learned from my mistake. So, but regardless, I was thinking Francesca was going to be that in some shape or form, because remember there was the lady that was in the first season that ended up getting killed. It was almost Dembe that was going to be up next, but it was that lady. She was kind of like his accountant. She was kind of like the main person that was with him like back in season 1. Her and Dembe. I thought it was going to be kind of a similar situation with Francesca. I was like, because I thought they were setting it up, because it's like, oh, Francesca says she's got a husband and all this, but we saw that she was just at home because, they had looked into her and found out she did. So it's like she created all these lies and stuff. So I was like, what's up with that? But it's like, oh, no, never mind. I guess we're just never going to get an answer to that. I guess for her, I guess it shows that she's a very good liar. That the fact of the matter is, she comes up with whatever lies that she needs necessary to survive. And she knew kind of spinning a web like that would prevent Reddington from feeling, maybe try to humanize herself to be like someone that Reddington would feel, empathetic and sympathetic to, and want to keep her alive to get her back to her husband or whatever. Whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, like I said, it kind of doesn't matter, because she ends up dead at the end. It's like, yeah, she was about to kill me, which I'm going to get to the whole Park situation in a second, but it's like, she was about to kill me, why'd you stop her? And Reddington's like, because you're my burden to bear, and he puts a bullet in her. I'm like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. like I said, I kept waiting. Like, is there going to be a twist to this? It's like, no, it is what it is. That just kind of shocked me. I'm like, I wasn't expecting that. I was almost, because there was a part of me wondering, like, was this even a further fake? Are we going to see that Park is actually back? Because for her, she didn't want to work with Reddington, because for her, it's like, the fact of the matter is, you know, it would transform my soul if I worked with him. Like, the fact of the matter is, you guys are a little, you know, you are upset with working with, you know, some of the stuff that Reddington does, but it doesn't affect you bound to your soul. But then we saw a different side of Agent Park. She's covered in blood and everything, and then she proceeds to start kicking Francesca's ass, dude. The fact of the matter is, like, something switched in her. She's breaking her through the glass, getting on top of her, punching her. She's about to take the glass, and like she almost turned into an animal. And in that moment, Reddington saw something. He's like, well, aren't you full? Almost basically like, aren't you full of surprises? Because Liz had said the fact that she saw that darkness in her, but Reddington didn't believe her. But now it's like, oh, I see it now. And now Reddington's like, no. It's like, because Parker was like, I came here to tell you that I can't work with someone as vicious as you. Which even Reddington didn't say anything. Even I'm like, really? Don't you think that's a little hypocritical? You saying that after you literally did what you just did to Francesca? I think that's a little ironic. But then it's like, because it turns out, you know, Francesca has a bit of a dark past. And like, the fact of the matter is, like, and that was one of the reasons why Liz chose her, because it's like, oh, you've got secrets. And I guess, like, in a grand scheme of things, because if you have a secret like that, that means that you are kind of a good fit, because literally everyone on this team kind of has their own dark secret in some shape or form. I don't know. Because I guess if it's like, if there's something dark about you, if there's a secret, that means that there's a part of you that is going to be more malleable with the gray area. I think that's kind of what Liz, you know, you'd be a little more accepting of the circumstances of working with Reddington. I guess maybe that's what she was kind of going for, but nevertheless, it's like, yeah, Reddington's kind of interested in working with her now, which is like, okay, like I said, I wasn't expecting that. So that was kind of a nice, interesting situation. And I'm interested to find out what it is, because the wrestler had made a point of like, oh yeah, your trajectory was kind of like by the books, and then something happened and it kind of shifted everything. And Liz had brought it up too, but Liz was like, yeah, the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to ask you about it. I don't want to know. But now she wants to tell Liz what it is about her past, so that Liz can make the decision whether she really wants her to join or not. So that's definitely going to be interesting. And future interactions between her and Reddington are definitely going to be interesting. Because I'm curious, like, though, because in that moment, she decides to take the job. Because I guess even after Reddington saw what she did, the fact is that he kind of accepted that. Maybe she's like, what's going on here? You know, maybe it kind of piqued her interest regardless. So there's all of that. And then kind of another side plot to this episode is Aram and obviously Amelie, Miss Radcliffe. That was kind of interesting. Like, they break into someone's house, and obviously, you know, Aram is kind of like nervous about it. It's like, yeah, oh, we came to tour the place, and obviously you're breaking and entering. Well, we are breaking and entering, I mean. Then they proceed to have sex, and it's just like, ooh, it's hot and steamy, and oh, it's so taboo. And then the lady who owns the place, that part of me was wondering, it's like, are we going to find out a twist that is actually like Miss Radcliffe's mom's house or something like that? But it's like, no, it was some complete stranger. And Aram tried to play it off like, oh, I'm with the FBI, and I'm arresting this lady. And she's like, oh, we like to do role play. And she's like, get out of my house. And they're like, oh, and you know, Miss Radcliffe is leaving like, oh, you should really like spruce, you know, take a tour. Your home is lovely and whatnot. And now it's a situation, because Aram, it's like, I'm not the type of person that takes a lot of risk. But she brings up the fact is that her and her husband did a lot of risky stuff. Obviously, the particular risk he took left him in that situation. And now, you know, she spent so much time taking care of her husband, she's never been able to continue living her life in that risky way. And she needs it to feel something again, which once again is kind of a kindred spirit with her and Aram. Like, the fact is, he's been feeling nothing lately because of this whole Samara situation. So it's like he wants to feel something again. And obviously he finds himself in a very, what would be the word? Well, let's just refer to it as a very high risk taking relationship. And I think we're just going to see things escalate more and more and more. And I brought it up before, because at first I was like, oh, it looked like Aram is kind of backing out of this situation, but it looks like by the end it's like, nope, looks like he's all in. So it might go back to what I was bringing up before, of like things get escalated more and more and more, and he starts, because he wants to start feeling something as well, because once again, as Harold said, told him to feel pain and something is better than feeling nothing at all. So we'll see in the grand scheme of things what ends up happening around that relationship. Because I'm just sadly waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I'm sure it's going to drop in a big way. But like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait and see. I'm so curious to see where all of this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.